Wait, Canada actually has a federal alternative politically? I'm Danielle Metz,
I'm Robert Vaughn.
and this is the Danielle Metz Show. Quote, we in the People Parties with Maxime Bernier are the only people in Canada at this time in history endangered by globalism and Islamism, fully prepared to engage in a national conversation about this elephant in the room and how it subverts the national interests of Canada, stated Dr. Salim Mansour during his speech at a People Party's rally introducing his candidacy for the upcoming October 2019 federal election. I have to admit, I have only voted once in a federal election, and that was the last one. I voted for the Conservative Party. And it was actually a vote for them and not just against the Liberal Party. I actually liked Stephen Harper, even though I didn't agree with a lot of his policies. And what I liked most about him was his stance on immigration. He was a nationalist, as opposed to Justin Trudeau, who is an avowed globalist who denies that Canada even has a core identity and therefore is the world's first, quote, post-national state. When Conservatives traded Harper for the Trudeau light, Andrew Scheer, in a rigged election against Maxime Bernier, I gave up on federal politics altogether, until Mad Max bellied up to the bar and struck out on his own, forming the People's Party of Canada. With the masculine slogan of strong and free, and a strong stance on immigration reform and nationalism, on free markets, such as getting rid of that cursed dairy cartel, and a focus on Canadian values, he renewed my hope for my beloved but beleaguered country. And given the rock star response he's been receiving at his rallies, it would appear that I'm not alone. So, Robert, do you think Mad Max's gamble with the People's Party of Canada will pay off and be the bright light at the end of the globalist socialist tunnel? Or did he only serve to split the vote and hand Trudeau another 4 years to continue to destroy Canada from within and without?
The idea of splitting the vote has always been a false dichotomy, actually. This one or that one. It's a false dichotomy. When an election comes, the slate is wiped clean. As a matter of fact, the government isn't sitting, and technically there is no, there's a caretaker prime minister who is the prime minister, and the government doesn't exist, really. So for people to say you're splitting a vote between, I guess in this case it's Conservative versus PPC, totally wrong. Maxime Bernier has shown himself to be completely distinct from the Conservative Party's Andrew Scheer. Completely distinct. There's no comparison. If there's any comparison or degrees of separation, it's between Andrew Scheer and Justin Trudeau. They share more policies than the Conservatives and the PPC do. That's an absolute fact. All you have to do is go through the comparisons that are showing up on the internet now, which compare the platform planks of the 4 or 5 parties, in the 4 in Parliament and Maxime's PPC. So no, there's no such thing as vote splitting. You vote the way you want to. How is that a split? It's a single entity. How can you split your vote?
I think the idea is that people who would, to vote Trudeau out, would vote Conservative, but because they now have another option, that option is going to sway their vote that way, and therefore take away any one party's ability to defeat Trudeau, which is the goal of pretty much everybody that even considers themselves remotely on the right.
It's true that everybody, or a lot of the country, not a lot, not a hell of a lot you would think, but a lot of the country want to see Justin Trudeau gone. He's a national embarrassment and a very dangerous man to the security of this nation. However, putting somebody in who mirrors his policies, you're just going to get Justin Trudeau in again, but in the guise of Andrew Scheer. Andrew Scheer is Justin Trudeau light, but still Justin Trudeau. He's the Liberal Party light, but still the Liberal Party. Who cares about that? You either go for the gold, and in this case it's Maxime Bernier's PPC, or stay home, because Andrew Scheer is no alternative to the Liberal Party and Justin Trudeau.
And when
He's saying the exact same things.
Exactly. And when is the time you're supposed to do this? When is the time you're supposed to break out? When is the time you're supposed to take a principled stand? Is there like a manual that says, oh, well, at this point in time, it's okay for you to break away from the party and start your own, but this time you can't because that's going to be detrimental? No, you have to take a principled stand when you need you see that needs to be taken. And I have to say, the amount of individual freedom, free markets, the terms he bandies about and stands behind and believes in, I'm just a titter. Like, I just am thrilled. I'm actually excited about the next election. I'm going to go out and actually vote again for the second time in a federal election.
Your father and I have been pretty active in trying to cover the People's Party of Canada on our Just Right radio show and YouTube channel. And myself personally, I've been involved. I'm going to interview our local candidate here, and I've already interviewed 3 candidates other than Celine Mansour, of course. I've interviewed Maxime Bernier, put that up on our YouTube channel. I'm Celine Mansour's campaign chair, or campaign manager, if you want to call it that. So I'm getting pretty involved because, like yourself, I'm very excited. I haven't been this excited since I discovered the Freedom Party of Ontario.
Yeah. It's the first time I've seen a party that I've seen that stands on principle rather than which way is the wind blowing today. They actually, and he's not afraid, he doesn't back down. They call him on everything, and he stands up and, yep, that's what I said. And I watched a video just recently, and he was being interviewed about all these issues. He goes, yeah, you can go look back 7 years ago on YouTube. I have videos saying the exact same thing I'm saying now. He believes in principle. He doesn't believe in backing down. He doesn't change because the, quote, times change, and it's not politically correct to say that anymore. And the stance he takes most that resonates, I think, most with Canadians is on immigration. And the fact that we as Canadians actually have values, have an identity. We are a people. We are not just in the dustbin of history as somebody to be wiped out by new immigrants who are coming in here to take over our culture. I think that resonates with a lot of people who are losing hope in society.
And it's odd because immigration, I think, was not the main burning issue behind Maxime Bernier. It was the dairy cartel from his, like...
Oh, I hope they get rid of that.
Yeah, and that's such an obscure, archaic law put on the books by Pierre Elliott Trudeau, Justin's father.
50 years ago.
And it's supported by the Conservative Party. And as a matter of fact, that's the only reason that Andrew Scheer is the leader of the Conservative Party, was because the backing of the dairy cartel from Quebec. Now, Maxime knows all too well about it, and he's making a big gamble here because he covers the riding of Beauce, which is from the eastern townships in Quebec, almost towards the Gaspé, and beautiful country. And he's taking a big gamble because he's out there saying we're going to get rid of the dairy cartel, which has benefited to a large degree the dairy industry, which is mostly from Quebec. So, but it's resonating with a lot of people, and it's so funny that it's such an archaic little tiny law. It has a big impact, mind you, on the price of milk in China.
Do you go grocery shopping? I do. When I buy a chunk of cheese, which is one of my favorite foods, it's like, oh dear God!
Try getting it for less than $5. Yeah.
Yeah, and what they're doing is they're raising the price and lowering the amount you get. So it's like it used to be 500 grams, and then suddenly it's 400 grams, and it's 50 cents more, and you're like, wait a minute. I see what you did there.
That was the burning issue for him, and he wrote a book on it, released a chapter on it, and it was just after he released that chapter that Andrew Scheer started to shut him up, which started to rankle him, because this was a pro-freedom, pro-capitalism, pro-business plank, and the Conservatives will have none of it. So all of a sudden, he now is the champion for fettered immigration, reasonable immigration.
Yeah.
And the media have picked him up as the darling for this particular issue because they always turn immigration into racism.
Oh, of course.
You're a white
immigrants
supremacist,
is a
you're a
race.
white nationalist. Yeah. So that's why he's seemed to be that this is the issue for the PPC, but it isn't really. I mean, if you just go to their page, the webpage, you've got it up here. What's the first one? Pipelines.
Yep.
Allowing our oil and gas industry to grow. Freedom of expression. He'll refuse funding to universities who violate people's freedom of speech. Foreign policy, he talks about immigration in there, and keeping out of conflicts that have nothing to do with Canada, that kind of a thing. He's very much a dove in that respect, except when it comes to Canada. Global warming completely rejects the whole nonsense.
He did the carbon dioxide. He goes, do you realize that's plant food? Yay,
well,
somebody who realizes it's not a pollutant. Good job.
Yeah, what's it say here? In fact, CO2 was beneficial for agriculture, and there's recently been a measurable greening of the world in parts, think the higher level. So, I mean, he's got the gall to go out there and say such a thing. And then you got supply management, internal trade. I mean, a lot of people don't realize that we don't have free trade even
No, we
within our
don't.
own country. Healthcare, give it back to the provinces because constitutionally it's a provincial issue.
Yep.
Firearms, respecting legal firearm owners and targeting criminals. Equalization, fairness for all. That's his platform right there. You'll find immigration buried probably under foreign policy here.
Yeah, but I think the thing is, immigration is a very
Actually,
big
it's not.
thing. I think Canadians are waking up to the fact that, well, the same way Americans are, and the same way people are in Europe are waking up to immigration. He did promise to put fences at the ports of entry where there's the biggest problems, because
Oh yeah, the Roxham Road, yeah.
yeah, and we are finding that immigration. You look around and you notice that your neighborhood isn't the same anymore, and it's not the same. And all these people are coming in; they're not vetted, and it's causing a problem. And I think a lot of people are scared of watching the culture of their country being eroded away. And I think he speaks to that very much. And I don't mean that in a racist way, because immigrant is not a race. What I mean is that people coming into the country unvetted and illegally changes the society that they're entering into. And that's just a fact.
Sure. Yeah, and it's not, it has nothing to do with skin color,
Nope.
race, or anything like that. It has to do with our ability to assimilate somebody from a different culture into a Canadian identity, which is a Western liberal democracy identity. So if you take somebody from Ghana, welcome. That's great. As long as you're
Yeah.
not a criminal or a terrorist, welcome to our country. But we're not going to accept 50 million of you because we're only 36 million.
Yeah.
So we would now become Ghana North. That doesn't make any sense. We're Canada. We have a national identity of liberal Western democracy.
Bill Whittle made a very good point in this regards in regard to being an American. He said, immigrants who come to want to be an American are more than welcome. Immigrants who want to come to just be in America, that's the problem.
Yeah. And also, I don't know who says, probably Yaron Brook of the Ayn Rand Institute, it should be, or maybe Leonard Peikoff, it should be easy to be an immigrant. I agree with that. It
Yep.
should be hard to become a citizen. Because with citizenship, what do you get? You get to exercise your franchise and
Right,
vote
vote.
and change government. And that's what people are afraid of, and rightfully so. If you can't assimilate, then I don't think you should be voting, because you'd be voting for people who would represent you in your culture and not us in our culture.
Exactly.
Right?
Or for the
which
party
again-
that let you come into the country so easily and gave you that franchise to begin with. You know, the Laurentian elite. Oh, well, you guys let us in. Oh, I guess we'll vote for them because they're the ones that welcomed us here. And then not reflecting the population that already exists here, the Canadians that were born and bred or came
Yeah,
here and
exactly.
assimilated.
Yeah. Now, if you want the immigration policy, you don't find it on the platform page because it was covered under his policies when he was running for Conservative Party leadership.
Yeah.
So it's in the policy things. And then the points are reduce the total number of immigrants to 250,000 a year. That's actually changed.
Yeah,
it's
so
now
150.
between 100 to 150,000.
That's what I've heard. Yeah.
Depending on economic needs, yeah. Focus on recruiting immigrants with specialized skills.
Yeah.
Increase resources for CSIS, the RCMP, and immigration officials. Immigration not to be used as a tool to forcibly change the cultural character and social fabric of Canada, which is exactly what Justin Trudeau and his Somalian or Sudanese immigration minister is doing.
Yeah.
They're deliberately trying to change not the color of the country, but the culture of the country.
Yep.
And reliance on the United Nations for refugee selection. In other words, get out of the global compact for migration, which dictates how that immigrants have just as much rights as citizens. Wrong. And an immigration policy fulfill Canada's economic needs. I mean, absolute common sense, which is so uncommon in the government halls these days.
Yep. It's unfortunate. But I think, what do you think his chances are coming up to the October election? Do you think there's going to be a wave of the strong and free People's Party of Canada, or do you think it's going to be split and minority government? Do you think Trudeau's going to win majority again, or what is your prediction? I won't hold you to it, just so you know.
I can only go by the polls if they are accurate, and of course we know if polling is, we know what the polls, how wrong they can be, just looking
Hi,
at
Trump.
Clinton, Trump, yeah. So, yeah, I think Hillary at one point in time, right close to the election date, was 97% chance of getting elected as president. Of course, totally wrong. So anyway, but the polls show Max at around 3% and the People's Party around 3%. But if you look at, for example, the Green Party, which has a seat in Parliament, is projected to get 6 seats in Parliament this time around. They're just shy of 10%. So, and these percentages can change quite considerably in quite a short amount of time. The fact that he's not covered by the mainstream media as much as he should be is I've talked to some elderly friends of mine, they never even heard of him. Never heard of the People's Party, never heard of Maxime Bernier. That's a shame. That's an absolute crying shame, and I blame the mainstream media for not doing their job as journalists and reporters.
When you take your orders from the people at top that pay you the money, what do you expect? And also, I think the fact that when pollsters are asking questions, I would really like to know what questions they're asking, because they tend to skew results based on the information that they're looking for, rather than asking a straight-up question.
Matter of fact, I mean, I've heard from pollsters before, and they would ask the question, especially provincially, and I would answer Freedom Party if asked the question. They would say, if an election were held today, who would you vote for? Conservatives, Liberal, NDP, or Green? Because they're the only people with seats in Parliament, right? Except provincially, there's no Green. Or they would ask just the three, or other. And if you say other, then you're lumped in there with the Rhinoceros Party and the Flying Yogis, and the Marijuana Party. So
the
it's very difficult.
It's
very difficult to say exactly how Max's PPC will fare. I hope he gets his own seat because he has such a strong name there for the last 10 years or more, and his father before him. And
he's got name recognition too. So
I think that the PPC will be kingmakers. In other words, affect the outcome of the election. I don't think there's any doubt about that. They will cause some people to go away from the Conservatives, which could very well allow an NDP or a Liberal or a Green to get in a particular riding. But like I say, that's no different. They're all Laurentian elites. NDP, Liberal, Conservative have all blended into this amorphous evil mass that we have to get out of.
Yes, the royalty.
But the chances are, listen, I'm looking at Trump, I'm looking at Brexit, I'm looking at Italy, You look at Greece, you look at these countries where there's such a strong hatred for the way their countries have been torn apart and by massive unfettered immigration, by terrible economic regulations, that at some point in time, Canada will get so fed up that a person like Maxime at the People's Party will just all of a sudden flip and elect them. And we'll have a chance, just like the Americans had with the election of Trump. My God, that was a nail-biter, and the Americans pulled themselves out of the fire by electing Trump.
Oh, God, yes, that would have been horrible.
And now with Boris as the Prime Minister of England, it looks like the Brits have the United Kingdom have a chance of saving themselves from the clutches of the European Soviet just in time. And I have great hopes that Maxime will be a voice of reason out there and elect a few members to Parliament. I'm just hoping so. Anyway, we're doing our darndest to try to make that happen.
Well, here's looking forward to the time when Canada's a post-Trudeau state. And so until next time, take care, behave yourself, and vote PPC. Cheers.
If you've enjoyed this presentation, visit justrightmedia.org for more programming that's not right-wing, it's just right.